Everyone, welcome. This is the Tennessee Native Plant Society monthly seminar. It is August 19th, 2025. This is our August monthly presentation, and we are very, very fortunate tonight to have with us Dr. Jennifer Mandel, who is a plant geneticist and a professor of biological sciences at the University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. And Dr. Mandel is also the director of the Institute for Agricultural and Conservation Research and Education. And her work focuses on the DNA of plants and organisms. And her research and her other work uh, is centers on plant ecology, evolution, and biodiversity. Those are all topics that are of interest to our members, and we're so pleased to have you with us. And so Dr. Mandel has a degree in biology from Carson Newman University. I know that school. They have a very strong science STEM department. And then she also has a PhD from Vanderbilt University in biological sciences. And she also did postdoctoral research at the University of Georgia. So we're dealing with someone who has extensive credentials, and it shows. So we're pleased to have you, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Mandel. And um, for our listeners, we should say that there was just a blip when there was a thunderstorm in Memphis, and it knocked out Dr. Mandel's internet, and it's being restored. So fingers crossed that we can continue.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. Yes, hopefully the worst of it has passed. So thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here tonight. I've been looking forward to this all summer to get to talk to you. I was telling this to Tim last week when we practiced that I went to a workout class I go to all the time with some friends. And one of my friends, her husband is really into planting native plants. But it was the same day you all had sent out the email that I would be speaking, that also the same day that Taylor Swift was coming out with her new album, that she announced the new album. And so my friend's husband said, "You won't guess who's speaking at the Tennessee Native Plant Society." And she said, "Taylor Swift?" And so it was quite funny. He was like, "What?" So anyways, so you get me to share with you about what we have been doing here at the University of Memphis and across Tennessee. So I'm really happy to be here. And, Tim gave me an awesome introduction about my path. I did go to Carson Newman College. It's Carson Newman University now. That's over in Jefferson City near Knoxville. And I loved my time there. It was a great small university with professors that just really inspired me to go to the next step with my biology degree. And so that led me to Vanderbilt, where I also had a wonderful advisor, Dave McCauley, who was a beetle scientist turned plant scientist. And so that meant that a lot of the tools he had taken from sort of animal world, he could bring into the plant world, but that also meant he never really taught me how to make a herbarium collection. Vanderbilt did not have a herbarium when I joined the university. It had been given away prior to my arrival there, and so I didn't get the same sort of out in the field experience that maybe somebody in a truly plant lab would have been. But I got that experience when I went to the University of Georgia, and I was working as a postdoc in the plant biology department there, which has a wonderful herbarium that was just led by a woman who taught me how to make collections and the importance of making really good notes when you collect plants and preserving those. And so that was just a really great experience. So all of these sorts of things sort of bringing together the work that I do now. And I'm going to tell you about several things today. I'll tell you about our lab, and I'll tell you about our herbarium and work that we've done. And so, as Tim mentioned, I am the director of ACRE. That is a mouthful. I was glad that you read it out loud. So that's, you can see it there on the screen. So we call it ACRE. I also direct the University of Memphis Herbarium, which the code for that is MIM. And then I am a PI of a research lab where we work on plant genetics, conservation, and other things. And so I'll tell you little bits about all of that today, and we should have time for questions. I love to answer lots of questions for you all. Okay, so I'll just start off with acre. The University of Memphis sits in an urban space. However, if you go about 20 minutes outside of Memphis, you're in a really farm-heavy rural part of Tennessee and the Mississippi Delta. And so for a long time, there's been interest in the university having sort of an agriculture research and education arm. And a couple years ago, the administration said, we really want to be serious about this. And so they asked me to put together sort of a group of faculty that would be interested in this, do some sort of strategic planning around this and pull together what we have on campus and what we could do. And it turns out because of our geography, we have a lot of faculty who work in agriculture and more importantly at the intersection of agriculture and conservation. So this idea of helping both people and helping the land is something that a lot of faculty have passion for both in their research and in their education. So we pulled together 15 at least, now we may have more faculty who are working in this space and created this institute that is across different colleges at the university. So that means we have people in biology and chemistry, but we also have people who are in public health. We have people who are engineers, business and marketing. So all of these faculty align underneath ACRE, and we are tasked with both amplifying the research we already have going on campus and then growing that research, but as well bringing in sort of the next generation of students who are going to be trained, both interested and then trained in sustainability and the importance of agriculture for our part of the state and our part of the US. So that's ACRE. And as I mentioned, we are tasked with being sort of the agriculture research arm at the university. And you can just see a smattering of the projects that we're doing. And it's not your typical projects you might see at a land grant institution. So I don't know if you all are familiar with that system, but there is typically one or more land grant institutions that were designated in the 1860s by Congress. And so University of Tennessee, Knoxville is our land grant system. And they are tasked with research and teaching and extension. And a lot of the research is important and meant for helping farmers, be more successful in Tennessee. But by being not a land grant, it means that we're a little more flexible in the things that we can do. So you can see that the projects that we have are maybe sort of things you might not have thought about for agriculture. Monitoring pathogen buildup in white oak outplanted restorations, or monitoring honeybee pests, that sort of thing, microbiomes in sunflowers. So the research that we do is, again, really about that intersection of agriculture and conservation. And we have some really wonderful partnerships. So Ducks Unlimited is headquartered in Memphis, and we have a course that students can take that is a co-branded, co-taught course with Ducks Unlimited. So the students come in and they do a course that's called Habitat Conservation and Ecology, and they get to learn about waterfowl and plants and ecology and habitats. And we go through the semester, they do activities out in the field. So they plant trees in collaboration with folks like Wolf River Conservancy. And then at the end of the semester, they get, if they pass, they get a certificate from Ducks Unlimited that is an industry certified certificate in that field, as well as course credit from the university. So it's really a cool partnership. And if you can see this picture here, the third one from the left, that's Adam Putnam, who's the CEO of Ducks Unlimited. He stopped by on the first day of class back in the spring. And this gentleman in the front with the Ducks shirt on was not a plant. He showed up to class with his Ducks Unlimited shirt, and we got that great photo. So very exciting. The students got to talk to people from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge. They spoke with people at NRCS and, of course, Ducks Unlimited. So really trying to get, bring the outside world into the classroom for these students. Many of our students at U of M are from Memphis and are not, they didn't grow up running around in the woods. And so many of them have not even really been out into the field much. And, we took these students back in March to plant trees, and some of the students said, "Oh, I've never dug a hole before." Um, you know, and that's really powerful. It's very exciting for them. And I didn't know I would love this. In biology, a lot of the times students think that they need to go into a pre-health field, some sort of health field. And so we try to tell them, that's important, but if you want to help people, there are other ways, and conservation and agriculture is a space for you. So it's a little bit about that. And then I wanted to make sure I tell you about our herbarium. I heard you all had a wonderful couple of visits to the UT Chattanooga Herbarium. And the University of Memphis has a herbarium as well. So a herbarium is a collection of pressed, preserved plant specimens. And so if anyone ever made a leaf collection or collected a four-leaf clover and pressed it between a book, you have become your botanist, and you could accession your specimen into a herbarium. So we have a herbarium at the University of Memphis, and we have these collections. So I've taken sort of some screenshots here of what the ultimate pressed specimen looks like. So you have your dried plant, we glue it to archival paper, and then there's a label on all of those plants. And these sheets are, a big sheet with the plant on there. And the label typically should have the person who collected it, the location, the species name, and any other information. And so it serves as a record in time, a snapshot in time about this plant, where it was, what was around it, was it in flowering. It's a really amazing resource. And just some shots here. Not only is it an amazing resource for scientists, but they're beautiful. I love looking at herbarium specimen. There are also fungi that folks will collect and accession. So, herbaria around the world, there is the largest in the US, is the Missouri Botanic Garden, 7 million specimen. The New York Botanic Garden maybe has more, 7.8 they claim. We'll see. 7 million at Royal Botanic. The largest in Paris is the Natural History Museum, has 9 million specimen. And so super, super impressive. We are also quite impressive at the University of Memphis. We have about 20,000. And so we are considered a small. And it's so funny when I give tours to the unsuspecting folks, and I say, we have 20,000. And wow. And I say, well, Georgia's got about 400,000. They're like, oh. It's almost like you can't imagine what 7 million is like, right? So 20,000 specimen, and we have a really strong presence in the South. We've got a lot of Kentucky specimen, Tennessee, Arkansas. It's about 20,000 of those there. And of course, our herbaria are critical for preserving genetic resources. So our oldest collection at the MIM Herbarium is 1899. And I love to tell people that, we could pull a leaf off of that specimen and extract DNA from that leaf and study it if we wanted. And that is before, 50 years, 60 years before we even really knew what DNA was. So it is it's unimaginable the things that we'll be able to do with these plant specimen in 100 years. And it is just critical that we take care of them, we preserve them, we collect them, we add to these collections. Identifying traits for new crops or for breeding is another place where I think herbaria can be very important. We also, know where these plants were collected and if they were flowering, so it can tell us something about a changing sort of environment. And we can also, with a lot of these collections have seeds, and so you can have seed banks. So if you are wanting to do some sort of restoration project or agricultural project, it's really an important resource for us. And something else that's really cool that we've been doing this summer in our herbarium is we have a student from one of the high schools here so a high school student, it's very, very cool. So she's like 17 years old. She came and she spent the summer with us, and she is taking herbarium tissue and pureeing it with water or alcohol. And she's taking that leaf sort of puree and testing out antimicrobial activity. So antibiotic resistance is a really huge, it's a really big problem in the medical field. We are constantly looking for new sources of antibiotics, new sources of antifungals, and plants hold a lot of the key to that. Many of our antimicrobials come from plants, and a lot of plants have never been assayed for their antimicrobial activity. So Lucy came to our lab and was interested in both plants, which a lot of high school students, well, not a lot of high school students come to me and say they're interested in plants. Let's just say that. And so when she said, I like plants, I said, you are going to be in our lab this summer. And so Lucy has been this summer looking to see what leaves have some sort of antimicrobial activity. And this summer, she found about 20 plants that have activity against bacteria. And so we're taking those over to the chemists in our buildings, and we're going to do some analysis to look to see, well, what is exactly in there that could be contributing to this antimicrobialness. So we're really excited about that. And it's just really neat to see a student as part of a project like that. So herbaria, sort of an unexpected use of a herbarium. All right. So we also have at the university research greenhouses and a seed bank. So we have over 2,000 seed accessions that are representing 250 species. We have a really strong crop wild relative focus. So that means the wild relatives of our crops. So wild sunflower or wild carrot, for example. And I love giving tours to folks to show them what we have. I think people are often surprised how interested they are in plants. You guys probably see that too. It's very neat to see. So as a resource we have there. As the third sort of hat that I wear, I guess, at the university is I am a researcher. And in our lab, we're really interested in biodiversity. And I think that's really what interested me in science in the first place. I'm from Crossville, Cumberland County, and I loved being outdoors. And I didn't like dissecting things in biology class, but I loved science and I loved math. And I loved, hiking and looking at trees and thinking about plants and thinking about why they were there, why they weren't there. And I had an opportunity to volunteer at the Great Smoky Mountains for one of their biodiversity inventories that they were doing when I was in high school. And that just got me really excited that there were people out there who were going into the woods and collecting and identifying things. I thought, this is so cool. And so I ended up telling I think it was my Sunday school teacher, I was like, I'm so interested in this, but I don't know what I should go to college for. How do I go be this? And what was really great, her husband worked for one of the natural resource agencies in the state. And so he got me on the phone with our state botanist that I was able to talk to. And I just had a conversation standing in my kitchen. I remember, asking, what do I need to do? What should I study in college? And he said, you need to go get a biology degree. You go get a biology degree and you can go a lot of places from there. And that was wonderful advice. And that's really where I ended up going to Carson Newman and realizing I still love plants and traveling over there to Vandy to work on plants. And so again, all of these experiences really led us to be me and my lab to be really interested in plant biodiversity. And the things that we do in plant biodiversity range from looking at genetic diversity in different plant populations. We also are very interested in the DNA, the genomes of these organisms, and how that can help us understand things like how to protect them or how to enhance them as a crop. And then we're also really interested in this field of phylogenetics, which is understanding how different plant species are related to one another. And the underlying theme here, maybe you can see, is really DNA. We love working with DNA and molecular studies. And our work is really, it spans this sort of applied to theoretical continuum. And you can see I kind of put on the more applied side, I would say that's our conservation and biodiversity work and also our agricultural work. Then we also have, interest in understanding the tools and the analyses that we use and how we can make them better so that we can, make better predictions for conservation or for agriculture. And when a student comes in my lab, it's often, some of them kind of they gravitate towards one or more of these, I have, one of my, best PhD students, she never liked to be in the field. She loved to be in front of a computer, right? We went out to the field a couple times and one time she said, "Do you enjoy this?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I don't. Is that okay?" I'm like, "It's okay." We need people to do data analysis too. Or you have someone who can't stand to sit in front of a computer and wants to be out in the field. And so the work that we do really can go both ways. You can be sort of in the middle. So I think that's what's really neat about some of the work that we do. And of course, we study all these things in the best plant family on Earth. It's the sunflower family. So that is the Asteraceae. Some people call it the Compositae or the daisy family. It really depends where you are in the world, what you call this family, but it is the largest plant family on Earth, the sunflower family. And it is there's a second close runner-up are the orchids, but sunflowers have more described species than any other plant family. And then there's the bean family, the coffee family, and the grass family. So these five families make up at least 30% or maybe a little bit more of all flowering plants on Earth. So we kind of refer to these as mega plant families, with sunflower again being the largest. And because the sunflower family is so large and sometimes unwieldy, we divide the sunflower family into tribes. So this is sort of a taxonomic level below family. If you remember your kingdom, phylum, class, order, family. So a tribe would be underneath that, but above, say, genus. And there are about 50 described tribes in the sunflower family. And I'll try to sort of point out. So you may know, the daisies, those are in the Asteraceae, so that's that big circle there in the top. These colors are related to sort of where they are and in the world, and then the size is representative of how many species are in that tribe. What's really neat to see is that you have some tribes that are just giant. So the Senecio tribe, which has your Senecios and Pacaras that you may be familiar with, has over 3,000 species. Then we have other groups that are unique and found, one place in the world, like this Hecastocloides, is only found in Nevada and a couple populations in California, and it is unlike anything else. So we can't stick it into any other circle. It's unique. We call it monotypic, and that's what's really neat about the family is there's some groups that have just exploded and some that didn't in terms of diversity. So that's also kind of a neat question to ask. Why does some group become more successful than others? And if you are wondering, what makes a sunflower family member a sunflower family, then you've come to the right place. So there are a few features. One is its inflorescence type. So I hope you all know, but I'll share with you that the inflorescence or the flower head of a sunflower or a daisy is not a single flower, but it is a composite, which is where the Latin composite comes from. It is a composite of multiple individual flowers. So the picture I have here, these purple structures that sometimes people call petals are actually individual flowers. And the center circles or discs in the center are individual flowers. So each one of these flowers has a fruit that will mature, or an achene or a seed. And that is a feature that all members of the sunflower family have. They are a composite of sometimes just a few flowers, or in the case of a sunflower, hundreds of flowers. But they're all into this one structure, which very cleverly looks like a single flower. And so we think that's one of the reasons this family is so successful. It is very efficient. If you're a pollinator, you stop at one flower, one head, and you pollinate 100 flowers. You're also sharing nutrients across the flower very efficiently because you're in tight proximity to one another. So that structure, that head is called a capitulum in the botanical term. And so you'll never, hopefully you never look at a sunflower the same. When you go to Kroger later, go close up to it and look and see all the individual flowers that are in that head. So it's really a neat feature. There are a handful of other features that all sunflower family members have. And one that I wanted to tell you about, oh, sorry, this is the zoomed in photo. This is a sunflower, and this is where you can really see that these are individual flowers that are all fused, stuck together. So can you see my cursor? If I move,
Yes.
you can. Okay. So
Mhm.
these are fused petals. There are 5 little petals of tiny flowers. And then the pistils and stamens, the reproductive parts are there down there in the center. And then if we could kind of drill down into the sunflower head, the seed will be down in there. So these are individual flowers. So I see, maybe like 100 flowers on this image. And then in this image, we've plucked out the ray flowers or ray florets and the disc florets. So you can see that there. So it's really, really fascinating. Another really cool feature of members in the sunflower family is that they have this, what we call secondary pollen presentation. And what that means is the pollen is not on the male parts or the anthers. It's actually displayed on the stigmas, the female parts of the flower. So it's kind of shown here that the stigma picks up pollen as it pushes through the flower, and then the pollen is secondary pollen presentation, so it's on a secondary structure. So it's pollen on a female structure. So all members have that as well. And I love to look at the pollinators of members of the sunflower family. So it's very diverse. You can see bees and butterflies and hummingbirds even. And so it's a quite diverse family, very exciting to study. All right, so I promised Tim I was going to try this. So hold on, I have to figure out how to pull the chat up. Okay. All right, we have, oh, thank you for that note there. I have to look at that. Okay, so I have the chat pulled up and we're going to play a little game. It's the evening, it's getting late, it's rainy here, that we're calling Name That Species. And I have the chat here. So I'm going to show you a picture and anyone is welcome to type into the chat, or if you want, you can just unmute if that's easier and holler out what you think this species is. And we'll just play this little game. Is that good? Are we good? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so I'll start you off with a softball here. So we have what is this species? You can either unmute or you can put it in the chat. And you don't need to give me the scientific name. The common name is fine. It's not a trick question.
Annual sunflower.
Oh, very good. Oh, with Anne. Thank you, Anne. Yes,
You're welcome.
you even had the annual. I love that. All right, so Anne started us off right. Okay, next. What do y'all think this is?
Mm.
Looks like a Gerber daisy.
That's right. That's right. Whoever said that, you are correct. And often folks get that wrong. I get zinnia a lot for this one, but you're right. Good Gerber daisy. This guy.
The thistle.
Thistle. Yes, ma'am. It is a thistle. So thistles are also in the sunflower family. That's right. How about this one?
Dandelion.
Dandelion. Thank you. Very good. Dandelion also in the sunflower family.
Lettuce.
Lettuce. Lettuce is also in the sunflower family. So there's a picture of its inflorescence, its capitulum. Lettuce and dandelion are very closely related. All right, here's 2.
Goldenrod.
Goldenrod on the right. Very good. What about this on the left? Anyone know?
Ragweed?
Ragweed. Oh, you guys are so good. Yes, so ragweed and goldenrod, both in the sunflower family, not super closely related in the family, but often poor goldenrod is mistaken for the thing that is making everyone sneeze in the fall, when in fact it is the ragweed that is here on the left, not a very glamorous flower, but they grow in the same ditches and fields and they flower at the same time. So excellent. All right, what else have I got here? This is a very difficult one. This is stevia. So
Oh.
this is a plant in the sunflower family where we get our sugar substitute Truvia from, and it is from South America, most diverse in Paraguay. So stevia is also in the sunflower family. And these I won't make you guess, but you guys did amazing on the other ones. But these plants are also species in the sunflower family. So the one on the left is a tree that is native to Brazil, and it is doesn't have a common name. Its genus is Daisy-phyllum. So this species is in the sunflower family. And then over on the right, we have these are Hawaiian silver swords, and they are very diverse on the Hawaiian Islands. And if you could zoom in really close, there's little sunflower heads on all of these almost agave yucca looking species, but these are in the sunflower family. And then on the lower right, these are related to Senecio, but they're from Africa. And these are huge, giant sort of tree-like structures that can be 30, 50 feet tall. And they are also in the sunflower family. And so I show you all of these to tell you that there's a lot of things in the Asteraceae that you're familiar with, but there's a lot of diversity out there that you almost would never imagine a tree related to a sunflower. So we're really fascinated by this. How did this happen? What does the DNA tell us about it? You know, what can we learn? A few more that I love to show. So on the left, these are in a tribe called Nephalae. I'm going to move my images there. And this is very cool because these are several little heads kind of tightly clustered. And then these white structures are not flowers. They are very hairy bracts or leaves around the heads of those of that plant. But again, to an unsuspecting eye or a pollinator, it looks like a single flower. So it's really amazing the sort of almost mimicry that things in the sunflower family have done. And then this species looks like coral to me. Paper daisies you may have heard of. Paper daisies are common to sort of have as an ornamental. This looks like some moss, but it's a sunflower member that grows in Australia. And then this species looks like a grass with little sunflower heads on it that is native to Uruguay. So lots of amazing diversity in the family. So lots of things for us to study and ask questions about. And just to show you here on this slide, this is to convince you that, you know, there is a lot of beauty in the family, but there's a lot of uses for the sunflower family, sort of economic uses. We have human foods. I mentioned lettuce, artichokes, are thistles that are in the sunflower family, food additives, medicines. It's typically thought of as the #1 horticulture gardening plant. So lots of uses of sunflowers and their relatives. And because there are more than 30,000 species and they're so diverse, this is the question that keeps most of the people in our lab awake at night, maybe, is why are there so many sunflowers? You know, how is this one plant family with these, you know, few, you know, defining morphological features, how has it become so successful? And, you know, as any good scientist, we have lots of hypotheses of why this could be. So we think about, you know, maybe it's that inflorescence, that flower type, maybe that's the reason it's so successful. Maybe it's something about the way it can disperse across a landscape. Maybe it's something about it being able to, you know, come into a new environment and kind of take over, like a niche colonization or some other key hypotheses. And so these are hypotheses that we can very easily test in this family because we know a lot about it and it's very diverse. So in terms of, you know, very diverse and how distributed it is, this map of the world shows you how many species are in each of these sort of continents. So you can see that for the most part, they're really diverse everywhere. So we like to say that sunflowers are found everywhere but Antarctica. Although even there are some two species that are on the sub-Antarctic island, so it's almost like and they're trying to make it there as well. But there are so many herbaria that we work with across the world, and it's really cool because the sunflower family is found everywhere, it means we work with people who are found everywhere. And so we have colleagues who are in Australia or South Africa or China or Europe, and we often are working with their herbaria to exchange specimen or travel there to study what they have. And we are members of this group called TICA, which is the International Composite Alliance. And it's an alliance or an organization of all these different groups of people, scientists who study the sunflower family. And all of this sort of questions about, how sunflowers became so successful has led us to create a sunflower tree of life. And these are the folks that were initially involved in that. There was professors, graduate students, postdocs, all different places they were from and career stages to put together this sunflower tree of life. And this is it. This is sort of a shrunken down version of the sunflower tree of life. So I mentioned there are 30,000 species in the family. Well, no one has yet sampled all 30,000. So we typically pick sort of representatives of each of those groups, like those tribes that I showed you with the circles. And you can see that this is a family tree or a phylogeny. And this helps us know essentially who's related to whom in the family. And across the top, I have the images of the different sort of representatives we've looked at. So in this sunflower tree of life, this one has about 250 species, but now we're working with some folks at the Kew Botanic Garden, and I think we have over 2,000 species. So still only a dent in this large plant family, but a lot of work. So every single species that we've studied in this tree, we've sampled them for their DNA to use their DNA to essentially kind of like 23andMe sort of style to understand how they're closely related to one another. And we've learned a lot of things as we've gone along the way with this sunflower tree of life. And we learned that from dating this tree, these species with fossils, there seems to be a Cretaceous origin of the family. So that would mean about 60 million years ago, this plant family appeared in the fossil record. And our tree of life has told us a lot about how the family, where it originated, where it first sort of appeared in geologic time, and how it moved across the earth. And we also learned a lot about how climate has played a role in this plant family. And we also learned a lot about how the plants move across our globe. So I'll just sort of show you a few images of what we think happened by sort of reconstructing the fossil record and the DNA of these plants. So probably the family originated sometime in the Cretaceous. So that means that there could have been daisies and dinosaurs hanging out together, which I think is very cool. And the family first shows up in southern South America about 80 million years ago. There's an image of some of the plants that we find down there. And as we march sort of through geologic time and think about how the climate on Earth changed, we see that the family probably migrated, or members moved out of South America to North America, then over to Asia, Africa, and then out of Africa dispersed to all of the continents now on Earth, making up the 30,000 species that we have. And it's neat because when we look at how the Earth's climate has changed over 80 million years, there are these coinciding patterns of movements to new continents and increases or decreases in global temperature. So when the climate changes very drastically, plants move. And I think that's really an interesting thing for us to think about as we go forward studying how plants are changing in our environment. And, because this family is so diverse, there are a lot of other things that I won't tell you about today, but there are a lot of people who are interested in the secondary chemistry of plants. So if we kind of think back to that work that high school student was doing to look at antimicrobial content of these plants, their chemistry, their secondary chemistry that the plants produce to essentially defend them from herbivores and things like that. Can also help us with things like antimicrobials. So people are interested in that, in those types of hypotheses as well. Okay, so I'm just going to finish up with a little bit about some native Tennessee sunflowers that I love to tell you about. So when I was at Vanderbilt, I, showed up there and I knew I wanted to work on plants, but I didn't know what plant. And so my PhD advisor picked up the Tennessean one Sunday, and there was a little article about this species called Helianthus verticillatus, or the world sunflower. And again, I'm sorry I can't see you all, but hopefully many of you have heard of this species, the world sunflower. It's native to West Tennessee. And Dave, my PhD advisor, reading about this in the newspaper. Interestingly, the article was written by the same guy I was talking on the phone to about 10 years before about what should I do with my biology degree. So it's really cool. The state botanist had written this article. So very cool connections there. And so this species was discovered in the 1890s, but then it was so rare in West Tennessee, it was not found again in nature until the 1990s. And during that time, lots of botanists who came through had the herbarium specimen because there was a record created for this specimen that was just deposited at the Smithsonian Herbarium, as well as the New York Botanic Garden. And wasn't found in nature, and so probably it was just a hybrid or some strange plant. But in the 1990s, whole populations of the world sunflower were rediscovered, and some scientists redescribed the species and brought the world sunflower back to everyone's attention. And that's when, about that time, is when I started my PhD. We used DNA to ask questions about why this plant was so rare, what do we need to do to restore it, those sorts of things. And it was eventually listed as a federally endangered species in 2014. And that was very exciting for us because it meant that there would be more research and more resources dedicated to studying this plant. And then eventually some other populations of the species were also found in Mississippi and Virginia, at least we thought, botanical cliffhanger. So this is an image of the world sunflower growing along an ag field, a cotton field there in West Tennessee. This is often where we find this species, sort of at the edges of an ag field and some wet sort of prairie, wet ditch-like habitats. Wild sunflowers are, of course, related to the annual sunflower that Anne called out earlier, and these are really important because these hold, potential for increasing diversity, increasing adaptability of our agricultural plants, of our sunflowers in this case. So some of the things that we know about this endangered species are, in fact, it actually has high genetic diversity. So sometimes you might think something is rare, it doesn't have a lot of diversity, but because of this plant's life history, it has high genetic diversity and it's highly clonal. However, there are not very many populations of this species, and the populations are very small. And we had a student who was working on these populations, and when the Mississippi population was discovered in 2017, she studied that population and found that it had some unique genetic diversity, which made us think, okay, well, this Mississippi could be valuable for increasing diversity in the other populations. And so we made some recommendations, but it turns out sometimes you need to revisit your findings in science. So we had only studied a little bit of the genomes of those plants and found that they were genetically distinct. But as we surveyed more and did more work with this plant and these populations, we started to discover that the Mississippi populations looked very different from the world sunflower that we were used to, both morphologically and genetically. So we continued searching for these plants and we found lots of populations of this sort of unknown species, this new fake, I'm going to call it fake world sunflower down in Mississippi. So we sampled through this and we had a student, Sam Drury, who did some additional genetic work to look at these populations and really found that the Mississippi populations were both genetically and morphologically different from the world sunflower that we have in Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia, and caused us to say, whoa, we need to not mix those gene pools and not try to supplement these Tennessee populations with the Mississippi. So we still have lots of questions about what this Mississippi plant is. We don't know what species it is. It may be a new sunflower species, but more work really needs to be done. So really, taking the time to study these populations, which can take years, is really important. And so having students very interested and excited about plant diversity is important. All right, so hopefully that I convinced you that's really important that we think about natural collections and really think about genes and the genetics and how that's important for both our conserving as well as agriculture. So natural collections and agricultural innovation really, I think, go hand in hand. So the herbarium and the work that we do in the lab and the greenhouse and the field, it's all really connected. We are all about, as I said, training that next generation because I can't do it all. I'm just one person, right? And so having students get really excited about plants and their importance in the landscape and to their food supply is something that we're really passionate about. So there's some students in the herbarium at Memphis. That's exciting. And then I just have a few plugs that I hope that you'll go check out. There is a journal that TICA, the International Composite Alliance, publishes. It is there. I think if you hold your phone up to my screen, you might be able to QR code this. And I gave my slides to Tim, so maybe we can share some of these resources later. But that's our journal, Capitulum. It's a wonderful read. There's science in there, but it's really approachable. And so I think everyone on this call would probably love to read these articles in Capitulum. It was really, really a fun journal. And then I just have lots of people to thank for all this work. I also, if you're on LinkedIn and you want to follow ACRE, our institute, you can do that there. You can check out our website. And I'm ready for questions. And thank you for your time. And I don't know if maybe
I'm trying to, let's see. Oh, there's everybody. Okay. Oh, that was fantastic, Jen.
Oh, thank you.
Just to start off the questions,
Thank you.
if I can, it was recently brought to my attention when I attended a conservation conference, and what you were talking about was with the world sunflower. Um, there's a danger in bringing plants and moving them around, and because of their genetics. And I know like from our perspective, I mean the members of the society, I mean all of us are most of us are planting natives, and we're buying them from places. And I know I've done that, and I've introduced native species, native that would be native to Tennessee, but I'm not necessarily getting them right from Tennessee. And so, like as you were pointing out, I could possibly do some harm by bringing in plants from elsewhere. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, there's some like science and some ethics and philosophy all wrapped up in that question, right? Yeah, there is you can purchase somehow. People are selling world sunflower sometimes, and people are also trying to do some work to get some clones of world sunflower so that you can put out on the landscape. And if you have something that maybe looks like world sunflower and it's planted, but it's actually not, and it could cross-pollinate with,
Yeah.
the natives, then you could be doing some, potential harm because, if they're crossing and they're not they're not the world sunflower, you might sort of swamp out that genetic diversity, that gene pool.
Mhm.
That's one of the harms. And so I think it really is important for the people who are knowledgeable about the science of these plants to be involved in those conversations, but there's only so many scientists, right? And so that's a really difficult thing to get uh scientists who know, or maybe there's not enough work done on certain plants, so maybe we don't know the answers to that. Um, yeah, and it's also very interesting, animals and plants are protected differently under the Endangered Species Act. So if you have a plant and you're a private landowner, you have an endangered plant, you're not required to protect that plant on your private property. So, we've tried to, when we go out to collect, we often don't want to say, oh, we think you have something endangered because that might worry somebody, on their property, but it shouldn't worry them because we're just wanting to study them and know more about them. But that's also part of the sort of philosophical, ethical sort of piece of that mixes with
Mhm.
the science. So it's definitely, I think the best thing to do is to have awareness about where the plants come from and what the sources are and what you're planting. So I think that's really
Mhm.
important.
So, and that's the value of a presentation like yours for the members of the
Cool,
Plant
good.
Society. I
Very
think that was good. And I just before we go, other questions. I know Karen posted an item on the chat here um, that TNPS has supported the Tennessee Kentucky Plant Atlas, and it has digitized over 401,000 specimen images, right?
Amazing.
Or no,
Amazing.
number of specimens with images of like
Yeah.
almost 350. Yeah.
And these come from the herbarium, all surrounding areas,
That's wonderful. So
Tennessee, Kentucky, and some of our collections from Tennessee are in Texas now. And
yes.
obviously, there's some in New York, and they're all over the country. But yeah, they're working very hard at getting representation from a lot of the species from the Tennessee, Kentucky.
That's wonderful.
Joey Shaw is working very hard on that.
Mhm.
If you haven't had your collection scanned yet, that's something for graduate students to
Yes.
work on. And members
Yes.
of TNPS, I think some of ours have helped out with some of that as well.
Yes, if anyone in the Memphis area is interested, so we are in the process, all of our herbarium is in CERNEC, the database, but it's not all imaged. So we are working through with volunteers imaging. And I just talked to one of the volunteers yesterday. She said, I'm up to 600. I was like, whew, keep going, girl. Like it's a lot. So it's not hard work either. It just takes a while, and so having volunteers is amazing, like champions for the herbarium. So thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll put in a plug for Joey,
Good.
Dr. Shaw, in that I know he would always take some more volunteers, and especially members of TNPS who have some knowledge of what they're doing,
Exactly.
or would be quicker learners than the
Yeah,
average person.
exactly. Yes. Thank you.
So,
Always looking for those volunteers. The hardest part we have at Memphis is finding where the volunteers can park.
That's a
little
problem at every
problems can be
university.
At a
major, though.
university, right? Yes. So I'm working on it
Frustrating.
though.
Yeah.
I have a quick HVERT question slash update. So I've had some volunteer in my yard from
Really?
yes, and so they could be hybrids
hmm
between the Jackson
hmm
plants and the other hybrid population I had. So I should probably bring you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to bring you some of that.
Yeah. I mean, bring me whatever you have. If you would dig up some so we can put it in a pot in the greenhouse, or if you have some That would be
Okay, I could
best.
do that.
actually.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
kind of volunteered. They've put themselves in a spot where they really are in my way. So okay.
It's
Okay,
so funny. It's endangered, but they tend to do that. They are quite
yeah.
weak.
And yeah, they did that some at the Botanic Garden, and I did my best to get them out of the ground. Or not out of the ground. The hybrid ones got planted there purposefully,
Mhm.
but there were some volunteers in nursery areas. And I know they'll get sprayed, but I also did my best to destroy those so we don't have to worry about
Mhm.
we don't have to worry about those.
Hard work.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, great. I will
Thank
dig
you.
them up. I'll be bringing you sunflowers that I'm unsure about.
Great.
All right.
What a great side to this talk that I get more
Yeah.
sunflowers.
Yeah.
That's
Yay.
awesome. Thank you. Maybe I can stop sharing for a second. That way, maybe I can see. Yes, now I can see more.
This was extremely informative. And I'll bet everybody, maybe not everybody, but I was quite surprised to see that all of these different types of plants are actually in the sunflower family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's now you can, next time you're at a party, you can impress your friends.
Did you know lettuce is a sunflower?
Did you know?
Mm.
Very cool.
Thank you so very much. It was quite
Thank
informative.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have any more questions, folks?
I do. I think also too, acquainting us with all of the things that are going on at the University of Memphis in your department is good for us to know. I know a lot of isn't it true? Everyone could agree that, I mean, we have a diverse type of membership, so we have scientists and then we have amateurs like me, but yeah, what you've presented, Jennifer, with all of the activities, acquainting us with the students, what's going on, the research, this is valuable information for us and for our
Yeah,
members.
good. As you're talking to other folks in your sort of sphere and network, let them know lots of great things going on at University of Memphis, all over the place with plants and agriculture and, really trying to get the word out on that and get more students interested. We're actually in the process of strategizing, strategic planning around a new major at the university. So the students right now can get a minor in agriculture studies. And there's some other minors in like environmental science, environmental studies, but they're all minors. And so students still need to go get a biology degree and add on this thing. And it really, students, it helps when there's more of a linear path to get to what they want to do. It's, a lot of people come into conservation in different ways. And so it's often later that people come into conservation. And we're trying to catch students earlier. And having a dedicated major around this is one of the ways to help do that. So we're working on that now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for this.
Yes, I'm glad the
terrific
internet held out. We're good.
Oh, I forgot. I've totally forgot about that.
Yeah, the
We
storm is
almost
gone.
this almost didn't happen tonight because of the weather.
Yes.
But your internet connection persisted, so
Good.
it was to our advantage. So, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you
And,
all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come visit us in Memphis.
absolutely.
Please do.